Welcome to the season 2 of the Alchemist Bootcamp. So this is a growth and leadership program that we've put together, the team here with my colleagues, Brandon and Luke. And over the next couple of weeks, we have 4 modules. The aim of these modules is to level up your careers when it comes to understanding data on the blockchain. We've had some incredible results from season 1. I think there is a handful of us that have moved to Web3 full-time, and that's a great testament to the program, because despite a bear market, people are still able to find careers and pivot to the Web3 space. So before I start, why don't we do a round of intros here so that people get to know us, the core team here. I'm Ganesh Swami. I'm one of the co-founders of Covalent. I'm a physicist by background. I used to do protein engineering way back in my life. And then that's where the word covalent comes from covalent bonds. But that's enough of the chemistry lessons. Really excited about data on the blockchain, decentralization. That's basically been my bread and butter for the entirety of my career. And I'm so fortunate to work in this space and really build Covalent with an exceptional team and even more exceptional community, which is the Alchemist program here. Let's go to Brandon.
Nice. So yeah, my name is Brandon. I've been with Covalent for about 2.5 years now. My background's mechanical engineering, finance. I've done a lot of work in Canadian oil fields. That got me into some data interests, and then it all spiraled into crypto and data science with crypto and all the sort. So I do all of the big data stuff at Covalent, and any data questions, database questions, optimization questions, feel free to tag me, send them my way.
Awesome. I'll just give a quick introduction about myself. My name's Luke. I ran season 1. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces in the chat. It's really, really awesome to connect and see people getting excited about season 2 as we roll out another version of the program. So my background is Covalent. Really, this is the the one thing I've done. I used to be an alchemist, actually, in the early days of the Alchemist program, and got very excited about Covalent and ended up getting a job here. So that's really my background. Again, I do a lot with Brandon on the data side. So a lot of your issues with the product, any bugs that you find, any data quality things, optimizations, or even maybe some positive things that you love. I would love to hear them all. So that's my background. Back to you, Ganesh.
Very cool. So one fun little story is that the first Covalent logo was very similar to the Under Armour logo that you have right now. It's like 2 bonds, and then our lawyer said you'll get sued out of business. So we had to change to this kind of logo, which is the bonds and the 2 free orbitals. Okay, awesome stuff. So let me kick this off with a bunch of questions. What is Covalent? Why does Covalent exist? What is Increment, this new product we're building? Why do this boot camp? What's in it for us? I think that's important to get out as well. What's different between season 1 of the boot camp and season 2 of the boot camp? And then what are some of the philosophies that we have behind Covalent? And Covalent is not just we saw a need and then built a solution to it, but it's our own brand of how we see the world. It's a very opinionated approach to things, and unique in many ways. So I think it's nice to share that aspect of Covalent as well. It starts from the word covalent, right? Most blockchain companies have an hexagonal logo, or they have block something in their names. It's all just, run of the mill. It's almost like you go to ChatGPT and give me a blockchain company startup name and blockchain logo, and it comes up with, just something that's natural. And so here, we've taken from the branding completely different kind of approach. So it's nice to get into all of that stuff. But the bootcamp will be really, really fun. I got a chance to sit in on some of the lectures last time, and I learned a lot, because what Brandon and Luke do is they get a lot of market information, and they're just able to parlay that to the alchemists. So it's a very unique position to be in, just to see what's happening in the market. And no, it's great to have. Okay, so let's start with Covalent, the genesis story, why we exist, what is the problem we're trying to solve, and so on. I think the best way to understand Covalent is to imagine the world 5 years from now. And what we think the world will have is multiple blockchain networks that's up and running. This could be Solana, this could be Ethereum and its rollups, it could be Cosmos and all of its zones, it could be Polkadot and its parachains, all these alt L1s like Avalanche or Phantom. You have all these app chain scaling ecosystems with Avalanche and its subnets, and Polygon and its supernets, and Optimism and the OP stack. Nobody really knows what the winning solution is, if that even makes sense. So what is clear is that blockchains as a settlement layer have reached escape velocity, and they're here to stay. There's no doubt about this. Maybe 3-4 years ago, it was unclear what's happening with blockchains, but today you have multiple products that have reached escape velocity, product market fit, like things like stablecoins. Stablecoins didn't exist 3-4 years ago. So these are actual use cases which is going to drive this entire crypto economy forward. So it's very clear that blockchains are here to stay. Now, the problem that's going to exist in this futuristic world that I'm painting is that users' assets and data is going to be scattered across all of these disparate blockchain systems. And what these and there's no way to do simple things like, what is a consolidated view of all of my holdings, or how do I pay my taxes? What about trades I've had on this roll up or this chain which I don't have access to because it's been deleted, or there's no one that's running a full archive node or whatever reason. So what we imagine will be required is an interface to extract all of this historical data and present that to a developer who's building an application. So some kind of like middleware, some kind of like interconnectivity, which is required. So that solution is what Covalent is. So what Covalent is today is a unified approach to pulling in all blockchain data. So what we've done is we've gone in and scraped all blockchain data, which includes balances and transactions and transaction receipts across 100+ blockchains. So that's like the scale of Covalent, and then normalize and canonicalize this into a single schema, and then offer that database with this unified schema across multiple products. So our flagship product here is a unified API. This API is used by 40,000-50,000 devs out there. Thousands of applications use this API to show rich transaction information, use it to build tax models, use it to show balances, NFT trades, all kinds of use cases. DAO tooling, so Tally is an example of a tool that uses Covalent for its showcasing like governance kind of actions. Just it's a widespread, diverse set of use cases. So that's really what Covalent does. So Covalent, the word comes from this analogy of thinking of a connector or a bond between Web 2 and Web 3, or blockchain and databases, or centralized systems and decentralized systems. It's this key enablement step that unlocks all of the potential of Web 2 or decentralized technologies. So that's really what Covalent does in a nutshell. Now, there's a very simple question that's come in. What is it? Is it similar to GRT and Link? And in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. So let's start with GRT. With the graph is also a decentralized data protocol, but it's philosophically very different from Covalent. We'll get into some of those bits in the future. In Link is very similar. It is also an interconnectivity, but the core difference is that Link brings in outside data to the blockchain. So it's an Oracle service. And Covalent does the opposite. It takes on-chain data and takes it to the outside world. So the whole point of Covalent is to take this new data store, which is blockchains or rollups or whatever you want to call it, and integrate with the existing tooling, existing infrastructure, existing talent that you have. So you don't have to retool your systems. So it plugs into Excel, plugs into Tableau, plugs into your ERP system, plugs into your accounting system. It doesn't matter what existing process or systems you have in place. That's the whole point of having Covalent, because on the outside, it just looks like a Web 2 kind of interface. That's really what's the core genesis of Covalent. And I had built Covalent just to scratch my own itch. Many, many years ago, I kind of ignored this whole blockchain thing because it seemed frivolous. I come from a database background, and I'm used to like 15,000, 20,000 transactions per second. And when Ethereum comes out and says, yeah, we can get 15 transactions per second, I'm like, okay, this is a joke. Nobody's really going to use this in a serious manner. It's not enterprise ready. But what I missed was the ethos of Web3, the decentralization story, the censorship-resistant nature of these technologies. And so I just built Covalent as a hack. I wanted to pull these transactions in Excel, ended up winning that hackathon, and then starting Covalent to take this to market. So that's really what the genesis story of Covalent is. I can give you a lot of advice, maybe on your life, maybe on your careers, on your schooling, but please don't take my advice on market timing. So I started Covalent just at the end of the previous bull market, so late 2017. And 2018, 2019, it was just, it's like a Russian winter, right? Where there's nothing going on. So for the first 2 years, we had no customers, no use cases, no traction. And if you subscribe to the Y Combinator style of startups, it's like you go after traction, go after like quick money, go after product market fit. But Covalent, it kind of like, I guess, ignored is what I would say in hindsight, but we didn't know any better. We were just, idealists in this world. And when, the boom hit in 2020, we were right team, right product, right kind of like environment. And then Covalent's traction just exploded. So that's Covalent in a nutshell. And what I want to talk about is how, like, what's the API, what's increment, why do this bootcamp, and things of that nature. So the API has been around for a couple of years. It's a pretty mature product. We continuously like rebuild the stack there. Like the balances, for example, is like version 3. The transactions is in version 3. So we're continuously like upgrading the engine, because a lot of things that just quite I would say interesting to me intellectually is that in a regular SaaS startup, if you think about that, what ends up happening is that you build an initial solution, and the solution only breaks down at scale. By scale, I mean user adoption, which is like, with traction. And usually traction is tied with revenue, so you can, put more resources, re-engineer, and so on. Now, with a blockchain data company, the problem is that even if you don't have traction, the supply side, the blockchain data just increases. So your endpoints and your SQL and your code, which worked 2 years ago, automatically they stop working because of the scale. Just the data is exploding on the blockchain with all of these rollups. So you have to re-engineer all of your endpoints every couple of years. And this is an ongoing challenge. And there's this phrase that one of the authors of Unix says that if you write, so to debug a system, you have to be twice as smart as the person who initially authored the system. And so if you have best in class today and you want to improve it, you have to be 2x best in class, which means continuously our team has to like level up and understand the edges of what's possible with technology. So it's a fun little problem. Not so fun when customers are screaming at you because their APIs are timing out. But that's just the nature of the problem we have today. So before I go into increment and the bootcamp and so on, one of the other unique aspects of Covalent is back in 2020, when we had an opportunity to take Covalent out to the market, talk to potential funding options. One of the things that Levi, the other co-founder, and I realized is that we didn't want to build another SaaS-like product, just another data provider, just one of many. We wanted to bring something unique to the space. I built lots of startups in the past, but I think this is an opportunity to try something new, try something different, and actually impact how this world evolves. And so that's when we decided to build Covalent as a decentralized protocol. So fundamentally, what's happening is behind Covalent, the entire ETL pipeline, the data extraction process, the cleansing process, the indexing process, the query process has cryptographic proofs behind it. So data provenance across the stack is secured by cryptography and mathematics, and it's not just on some organizational behavior. So that's pretty unique about the Covalent stack. This vision is still being lived out. I think in July, we're going to have phase 2 of the Covalent network launch, which is the next step in the data pipelining process. If you're interested in how the sausage is made, which is quite distinct from the bootcamp, which is using the products, then I would encourage you to look at the Covalent network and participate in another bootcamp that we have going on with running infrastructure. So it's quite different, very different audience, but that's also quite interesting. And it's about half of our entity runs that, along with probably 15 other validators out there. So it's a distributed kind of network for data. So back to the API. So when we went out and tried to build find traction, one of the things that was very clear to us is that the applications were not here. And the missing piece for these applications was infrastructure piece, like an API, an enablement piece. So that's when we decided to pivot Covalent and go one layer deep and build an API that powers all of these use cases. So the first handful of customers, the first customer was a security exchange. The second customer was a wallet. We were basically co-inventing the Covalent API with those customers. And these customers today are some of the biggest products in the space. Back then, they were just an inkling of an idea in someone's mind. So that's how we built Covalent. And the API has found product market fit. It has thousands of applications live on it today. And then we decided, okay, this Covalent database, the unified approach, the unified philosophy of providing and normalizing and canonicalizing all this data is useful to a different persona, which is the analyst persona. So that's where Increment comes in. So Increment, again, takes this unified schema, which underlies the unified API, and offers a experience that allows you to analyze anything that's required on chain. So it's quite distinct from a use case from the API. Very different, I guess, persona, very different vertical that we're going after. But that's really the advantage of building a foundational aspect in the space, because now you can build products for other use cases. So yeah, that's what's going on with Increment. So we started on this initiative about a year ago, and we basically treated our season 1 bootcamp attendees, the alchemists, as guinea pigs. And for guys who were part of the first bootcamp, if you guys remember, there was actually a week where Increment completely melted, and we had to stop the bootcamp and fix the broken pieces. And I did give the warning at the start of the bootcamp that this is a very, very new product, and if you break it, you get to keep the pieces. There's no money back guarantee or anything. It's just we're all going to still go those pieces. Amazing. So yeah, so that was bootcamp number 1. Bootcamp number 2 has a completely different experience. So the disclaimer still exists. If you break Increment, you get to keep the pieces. There's no money back guarantee or anything of that sorts. All of this is quite experimental because we're still trying to find the edge of what is possible. So let's go into actual Increment. Why does it need this? What's the problem it's trying to solve, and so on. So fundamentally, what Increment offers is it offers an interface a visual interface to analysts. So if you're familiar with something like Dune Analytics or Nansen or CoinGecko, essentially it's a non-programmatic way to extract and understand blockchain data. So the first version of the increment tool was a type SQL get charts kind of interface. So we had all of the underlying normalized schemas and the tables available to all of the alchemists, and you could literally type, select blah, 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 group by this. So all kinds of analytics queries have more or less the same kind of structure, which is group by some dimension, roll up by some metric, and order by some like other additional like time dimension or something. So, we got, I think, a few hundred alchemists actually successfully through the first bootcamp. So that's a testament to how easy this product was to use. And, it's a very similar experience to Dune Analytics or Nansen Query, if you're familiar with those products. In the broader business intelligence space, there are lots of tools like Mode Analytics and Periscope Data and Hex.tech. There are a lot of these tools that offer this to a standard data warehouse solution. So there's nothing special about that. Anyway, so what is unique about increment is twofold. First is the philosophy that it subscribes to. So the way increment wants to teach people to analyze the world, look at the world, is this through three prongs that are known as reach, retention, and revenue. And these three prongs are basically how all of business can be analyzed. So it doesn't matter if you're an NFT marketplace, your reach is number of traders. The revenue is either the royalties in terms of payouts or the marketplace revenue or just the GMV, which is how you compute and how you compare these marketplaces. The retention is how many of these traders come back. So if you have a leaky bucket, people come in, kick the tires, try something, and bounce. They never come back. Then that's not really, really good. So what you want to do is continuously improve retention, improve revenue. And I would think these three R's are like the three horsemen of business analysis. Why is it that way, right? So if you increase reach, you actually have to take away from retention and revenue. So let's take let's take the world of gaming, for example. So a game like Candy Crush, which is a casual gaming, it has massive reach, but the revenue, the ARPU, which is average revenue per user, drops because most of these guys are just playing this game when they're waiting at a line at Starbucks, for example, right? It's all casual use case. And a hardcore MMORPG probably has a limited reach, but the revenue per user is pretty massive, like multiple fold above the Candy Crush. So this is how the world is kind of like segregated. There's some kinds of products that have high retention, high revenue, but very small reach. And it's just in that parameter space where you want to define your product. So you can use this lens to describe basically any kind of product out there, NFT marketplaces, DEX products. I would say even the chain economies. So in the chain economy, essentially the gas spent is like the revenue. And if there's a developer fee there, that's like the revenue to the development team. The reach is just a number of active wallets. Now there's multiple definitions of what an active wallet means on a blockchain. And you want to be flexible enough to define all of those initiatives. And retention is like how sticky are the users on the blockchain. So that's really what it is. So you can do it on a chain level. You can do it on a protocol level. You can do it on any level, right? So that's really the beauty of this model. Even things that are like stable coins, you can use that for stable coins. You can use it for bridges. You can use it for any kind of aggregator. It's just a lens to see the world of business, because fundamentally all of these things are business at the end of the day. So you want to analyze this and understand, can you reduce revenue to increase retention, make it more sticky, or increase revenue and drop retention. So it's up to you how you want to design in that parameter space. So that's what this tool is for. The second thing that is unique about Increment, which is like version 2 of Increment, which a lot of the version 1 bootcamp attendees didn't have access to, is this model-based like visual layer. So this type SQL get charts is great to see quick results, but it doesn't scale within an organization or within an industry. So fundamentally, what we've done is we've gone out there and curated a set of dimensions and metrics. So the dimensions could be like a marketplace, the blockchain. A metric could be some kind of like aggregate. So count of traders, total volume, unique NFTs. And now what you can do is you can figure out any kind of analysis, which is aggregate on this metric. And the aggregation could be a sum, could be a count, could be a min, could be a max, any standard aggregate, an average. And then you group by these dimensions. So that's really how you have a time series. Now, you can generate really, really, really powerful analysis just by drag and drop, right? Just click, 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 and then you have a chart. So you don't have to type a single line of SQL. So what we've actually built on the backend is a SQL compiler. So it takes all of this visual language that you've built, the dimensions and metrics, and it converts it to a set of pretty sophisticated SQL that is super optimized. And then it generates the results, and the results are generated into any of the standard charts, which a lot of the increment users are already familiar with. So it's like Dune, except that you don't write a single line of chart. You drag and drop what your analysis is, and the SQL compiler generates the SQL for you. Now, this has a couple of advantages. The first is that these models undergo a lot of bug fixing. What that means is that it's not like you type in the SQL and it's frozen, right? As you improve the models, the analysis improves over time. As you add more and more dimensions into the model, basically the available analysis explodes from a combinatorial standpoint, right? Because you can have multiple stacked dimensions and multiple rollups, and all of this just scales. One of the biggest problems with something like Dune, where you hand roll the SQL, is that there's no way to extend it. If you want to add another dimension, you have to go back and write the SQL. There's no way to QA this thing unless you crowdsource or something, right? You're not building on this body of work. You're not relying on a compiler to convert these declarative syntax to SQL. So that's what we want to move away from. The third thing is that it makes this experience super interactive. So if you think about a dashboard that you would build in Dune, and you want to add like a slicer for time dimensions, which is, give me the last 30 days, give me the last 90 days, give me the last 6 months, and then you want to have an aggregation interval, aggregated by day, aggregated by week, aggregated by month, aggregated by year, whatever you want, right? Now you have to implement all of these slicers in your SQL for each chart. So if your dashboard has like 12 charts, then you need to add like 12 slices for each chart, and it's so error prone. And now with Covalent's like the increment modeling system, what you do is that all of this is out of the box, and you can actually inspect the SQL that's generated through this compiler, and it's quite sophisticated, right? And there's no like mistakes or anything, or if the mistakes are fixed on the modeling layer, and the compiler just regenerates these SQL statements on the fly. So you can literally copy and paste that SQL into our regular SQL editor and then make modifications from that. Or would you rather just drag and drop another aggregation interval? I think that's a lot better, a lot faster, a lot cheaper. So that's the second prong of innovation that we've introduced with increment. And the existing, I think there's like 5 models right now with increment. This is all like not an idea, it's actually implemented. You can go sign up for increment and you can play with it. There's going to be a full increment demo further down on this like intro workshop. But the 5 models are, there's one for like chain GDP. We're calling it chain GDP. Now, don't take these names. These names are like marketing names, right? It's not actual GDP. It's not, if you're an economist, don't get like frazzled because it's not what GDP means. It's just a nomenclature, right? Which talks about, active wallets, gas spend. Soon we'll have like developers deploying contracts, whatever metric that you want. The second model is like a JPEG analysis. This is a fun little name for NFT markets, right? So we've decoded, I think about 40 markets So if you think about these NFT markets, they're all bespoke in their own fashion, right? So take something like OpenSea. OpenSea has three different schemas. OpenSea on Ethereum is different from OpenSea on Polygon, is different from Seaport. So what we've done is we've standardized that schema into one structure. And what it has is what token, what collection, what chain, what timestamp, transaction hash, what asset was used to make the purchase, what was the fiat value of that asset at the time of the purchase, and so on. And so by having this standardized format, what you can do is you can say, okay, give me the total volume on OpenSea group by chain or group by protocol version. And now it'll give you a stacked area chart of the different protocols of OpenSea. Or you can have the same protocol like Tofu segmented by the different chains. Or you can have the same period-on-period analysis, whatever you want, right? It's quite flexible in that fashion. You want to compare OpenSea versus Blur, for example, or you want to drill down on a specific collection and how is it trading across different marketplaces, whatever you want. Like, it's a very flexible kind of, like, think of it as a hypercube, and you're slicing through this hypercube as a hyperplane, and that's what you see as an analysis. So it's a pretty neat kind of system, and all of these models are open source. You can go look at these models. We'll dig deep into this. The whole point of this bootcamp is that at some point you want to be overwhelmed, right? It's like walking into a candy shop, and then you eat all the candy you want, but at some point you're going to get the sugar overload. So it's kind of like that we want to design this experience. So it's going to be awesome. That's all I'm going to say. So that's why we need Increment. It's a very different kind of system. You're not typing like raw SQL. I think why waste your time writing SQL when you can actually jump to analysis? The unified schema really helps with that. The structured tables is very powerful, just like how we have one for the base tables with transactions and receipts. We have something similar for NFTs, something similar for lending, something similar for DEXs. So we decoded like dozens and dozens of DEXs. That includes all the constant product AMMs. And yeah, just a very, very neat kind of system to analyze whatever you want. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to jump through a couple of things here. I'm just going to go look through the questions. There's been a lot of questions, lots of great participation here.
Yeah, you want me to tee some up for you, Ganesh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please. I would love that. Thank you, Luke.
Yeah, there was one question about how we're sort of applying ML and how, some of the people experienced with our ML can use our data to build models and such. Is there anything down the line with that?
Great question. So this is an active area of research for us. I'll give you some ideas. If you want to play with this during the bootcamp, that's fantastic. You have all the support that you want to have here. Two ways, which out of the top of my mind, where you can use this. One is that you can get all this raw data and you can use it to train machine learning models. So if you want to build a wash trading analysis, if you want to figure out, machine learning prediction for floor price, if you want to, all of the things, you can just have this raw data. So that's a really great place to use it. The second thing is LLMs, which is language models. So I think we're in this world where we're moving from big data to big models, right? And what is actually empowering these models are the data that's behind the scenes. So this could be unstructured data that you use an LLM to structure, or use structured data like the way Covalent is designed, right? So like NFT tables, the DEX tables, the lending tables, they're all structured data. So we actually have dedicated a full module, which is module 4, to exploring this use case, including some like guest lectures from people who are doing really interesting things out there. And it's going to basically, I think an outcome from that module is a very simple text to SQL, I think a natural language to SQL generator. So basically you say, give me the top collections, or give me the total volume of sales on OpenSea, on Polygon. And then your LLM generates a SQL statement and then runs that against the Covalent database offered through Increment, and then just charts it, right? So that's like one of the nice outcomes that you can have. It's not that hard to, it looks crazy, it looks like mind-blowing, but it's not that hard to build that, and that's the whole point of that LLM module. Okay, so what's the next question?
Another question was around pulling NFT data from IPFS and Filecoin. So I think maybe that's queued up for the metadata that we're pulling, Ganesh, correct?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work on this side. Basically, what we've done is we've gone out. Okay, let me give you some context here. With NFTs, there's a core problem. The core problem is that not all data of the NFTs are actually on chain. So what does this mean? The set of attributes that an NFT has, which could be like whether you have like golden eyes, whether you have a hat on, what is your face color, and so on, right? And it's different from collection to collection. The second thing is the actual attributes are not on chain. Sorry, the actual asset is not on chain. So the actual like JPEG or a video or whatever it is, right? So what we've done is we've gone out and crawled a lot of this stuff. So basically, like if you take any collection, I think we've crawled, there's a page on the Covalent docs that if you go to like data coverage, maybe you can link to that. If you go to Covalent docs, unified API data coverage, it tells you how many collections we've crawled. So we've gone out there and crawled a couple of million assets and a couple of million metadata. So if you take a collection like Bored Apes, we basically have all of the images and all of the metadata associated with each token. So now in your models, what you can do is you can actually segment by attribute as well. So that's like super powerful. Like it's all off-chain, but we've brought everything into a database. So that's like super, super powerful. For an LLM, for example, you can fine-tune an existing model using the Bored Apes collection. So we have like 10,000 Bored Apes images. And then now you can extend that collection to 15, 20,000, 30,000. Now, don't ask me how good the quality is because the Bored Ape, the images themselves were hand-built, like all 10,000 were hand-built. So if you use a machine to generate, extend that, it's not going to be very good, but maybe you can use it to create, I don't know, things like wallpapers, things like, tablecloth, other kinds of artifacts, not like core images that way. So, those are like some of the use cases that you have from this crawl data. You can do whatever you want with it. It's very, very powerful.
I just want to answer one from Gabriella, which is, are we able to see sort of deeper under these models, some of the source tables and the SQL and such? And yes, so we, as Ganesh mentioned, we do have the type SQL get charts feature where it's just an editor where you can write SQL against all of our data tables if that's what you want to do. But also when you use these models, we have a little tab, which I'll show you in a second, that says generate SQL. And what this does is you can actually see the SQL that gets compiled from our SQL compiler. You can see the tables getting used. You can see the aggregations getting used, the multiple, unions and joins and such. So yes, all that's open sourced and you can access all of that in whatever way that you want. Maybe you could talk about some of the roles that would be relevant for someone that's very skilled in using increment and doing data analysis like this, Ganesh.
Absolutely. So maybe I can, at this point, continue on with the introduction to the bootcamp and why we built this and so on. So fundamentally, what I think is that I think we're going through a downturn, a pseudo recession. It's very hard to get the nomenclature right. The politicians seem to have redefined what a recession is, just so that we're not in a recession technically, right? But it looks like inflation is high. I don't know. I look at like a latte is like $6, right? That's like so expensive. Everything has become expensive. I think. Interest rates are higher, so there's definitely macroeconomic headwinds, and I think the best way to escape this kind of like contraction in the economy is to skill up and be productive. So what that means is that add net productivity to the economy, and that's really the intention behind the bootcamp. I think there's a lot of people with excellent skills, great careers in Web2, very talented individuals. Like there's hundreds of you guys here, all super, super talented. Now, by providing the training and the tooling to unlock that potential is probably the biggest gift and the biggest impact we can have on the entire space. So that's really why we put the bootcamp together. Yeah, besides that, I think, of course, exposure to like Covalent and all that is nice. But if you see the outcomes from the previous bootcamp, some of those attendees have actually gone and joined some competitors. And I think that's okay. I think that's great. I think, I'm not going to encourage it, but, I'm saying that's great because, this is not about Covalent anymore. This is about the broader ecosystem. So if we are able to change someone's life in that fashion, I think it's an incredible accomplishment. So that's really why we built this bootcamp. Of course, the guinea pig thing still remains. You break increment, you get to keep the pieces. So there's that aspect as well. But if you look even within Covalent, Luke is an example who joined in as an alchemist. There's a couple more people that you've probably seen on our YouTube channels and other kinds of venues. There's Leilani, there's CK, who are all alchemists who joined in through that program. There's a lot of like data alchemists from the previous bootcamp who are repeat attendees. So that's great to see. So that's the whole point of the data alchemist bootcamp. Now, why should you complete this? See, this bootcamp is a true bootcamp. What that means is that it's meant to kick you out. So in every step along the way, it's going to be quite challenging. And I think we've scaled the curves, the difficulty curves, based on our feedback. And typically, we would see a 50% drop off at every module. And so my only recommendation here is stick with it, right? Even if you're not able to commit to the hours, that's okay, right? Just attending these lectures, tinkering around with the stuff. It's an additional ask on top of your full-time job or if you're in school, but I think it's totally worth it, right? And I think there's another aspect here, which is, I had actually, it was a pleasant surprise. The emergent community that was generated from the Alchemist program. When you're in Discord, because it's not really a competitive kind of like thing, it's not a zero-sum game. There's going to be other people beyond the core team that's going to help you out with these challenges, and that's like really, really great to see. So fostering that community aspect, really, really learning like deep in the weeds with data, understanding how the entire like BI landscape is working with, having access to these guest lectures. I think it's a very unique kind of experience that we are trying to craft here. So I don't know, Brandon, Luke, do you have anything else to add to what the outcomes of this bootcamp are?
No, I think, it's very exciting to see some of the alchemists go out and, very active on, say, Twitter, writing threads, joining, as Ganesh said, some of the competitors. It's just really great to see people learning real world skills from this and going out and crushing it in Web3, which is exactly why we started this, right?
Cool stuff. Okay, so let me look at my notes here. I think I've touched upon most of what I wanted to say today. Should we take on more questions? Are there other kinds of things here?
Yeah, let me just have a look through some of these questions.
Why don't we jump into the demo first, Luke, and then we'll just bunch all the questions up together at the end, because I'm sure there'll be a ton of questions spurred on by the demo that you're about to give.
Great idea.
Absolutely. Yep, so let me just share my screen right now. Let me just come to here. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
You guys can see my screen? Awesome. So what you see here is...
Maybe, Luke, maybe go from the homepage and you sign up like that full experience, how do you get through the screen?
Okay. Yeah. So when you sign up to Increment, I can also go back to the platform page, but we can there'll be some content for you guys to navigate Increment in the thing if you have trouble, and we're obviously in the Discord as well. So I'll start from the home page here. As you can see, you have a few things. Really, the main section here is these 3 buttons. So before, the only real function of Increment was this type SQL get charts, and then you can curate these dashboards based on the SQL that you have written. But as Ganesh mentioned, we have these data models as well, which I'm going to jump into in a little bit. What I'm going to show you first is really a dashboard that we created without writing any SQL, purely through these data models. And this is called the Chain GDP page. Everyone's Increment account, you'll be able to see these dashboards, these pinned dashboards here, these Chain GDP, Swapland, token dog mode, and JPEG analysis. Now, your Chain GDP is all about your, chain analysis. Swapland is analysis on dexes. The token dog mode is sort of like a combination of all of these and gives you analysis on tokens. And then your JPEG analysis is for your NFTs. For week 1, we're going to be focusing mainly on blockchains. So we're going to start from sort of the base, and then we're going to move up and investigate things like lending, things like DEXs and NFTs and such. But we're going to start at the base and give you an introduction using the raw blockchain data. So let me jump into the Chain GDP page here. As you can see, every dashboard is imbued with this reach, retention, and revenue board. So things for like chains. For Avalanche here, you have things like DEX volume, gas spend, NFT sales volume, and such. Things like average gas fees, total gas fees. And this board here gives you some insight into the overall economy of the blockchain. As Ganesh said, it's important to stay on top of some of these metrics and tweak them. So, Avalanche is, the difference between, your average gas fee. If it's extremely low, then your network is, suspect to things like spam. And your revenue is also low. If it's too high, then it'll just price out users and destroy your revenue capabilities. So that's what this page shows here. You also have things like transfer volume, so how much money is getting settled in the native token, as well as ERC20s and such. Your revenue, arguably one of your most important metrics. This is quite unique to Increment. I don't know whether I've really seen people lean into the retention metric very hard on other analytics platforms, but it's by far one of the most important. It gives you great insight into how compelling a blockchain's offering really is, and doing comparisons between different blockchains. It's really, really interesting to see. So for Avalanche, you can see this like uptick in retention after these huge amounts of new users that have come onto the platform, but still relatively low in the past, around your 15 to 10% over time. Then you have all of your reach metrics. These are just, I won't jump into this. You guys can obviously access this. This is just your active addresses, transactions, your events taking place, whether they're swaps, withdrawals, deposits, and such. Now, the most compelling part about this is being able to do your cross-chain analysis. So for example, we showed Avalanche, but what we also do is index all of the subnets. So when these subnets are EVM compatible, they're just a turnkey solution to indexing them. So it takes us, not very sure how long it takes, Ganesh, but maybe 2-3 days to index one of these chains. So as the rate at which these chains go to mainnet and testnet and such increases, we are definitely there to scale with them. So before moving on, I'll just show you a quick example of using this for some cross-chain analysis. So we have DeFi kingdoms. We also have DEX a lot. So I'm just going to do is define a date range here. Go over the last 30 days. Awesome. So as you can see, now we can do some comparison. Now, obviously, DeFi Kingdoms is somewhat destroying Dexalot. Dexalot's sort of just getting started in its offering, but you get the point. You can see these stacked charts and doing comparison against all of these chains, whether you want to do analysis against all of the ZK EVM chains. So we also support, Polygon ZK EVM. I know they're on testnet, but also Linear, which is Consensus's ZK EVM. You can look at some of the OP ecosystem. So some really exciting stuff there with Base and Optimism as they launch more. So, some really, really exciting analysis you can do by just clicking and collecting. But obviously this is somewhat high level. We're going to give you and, make you an expert on using these models so you can curate your own dashboards that may be more specific to the actual comparison or analysis that you're trying to give. I just want to pause there. Brandon, is there any questions in the chat?
I think Ganesh hammered out some of the answers in the Q&A session there with written answers. But no, nothing major so far.
Okay,
I would
sweet.
say carry on with your demo, and I'll collect them all up and tee them up at the end.
Sweet, done deal. So this is sort of your high level. We wanted to start with something visual so you guys can get an understanding. But what I wanted to jump into now is like really the base level data and then build up to using some of these models. So what I'm going to move on to is actually just the structure of a blockchain. Okay, now a lot of you may be familiar, but I just want to address this quickly, just so you get an understanding of how the blockchain's data is actually stored and structured. So sort of high level, you have blocks, right? A blockchain is just a chain of blocks. Okay, within these blocks, and this will probably be a bit of an oversimplification, but it'll be enough for you to understand how we store it in our tables. Within these blocks, you have transactions. So a block can store 10, 20, 100, however many transactions. And then, this transaction is sort of very high level, right? How much gas was paid? What contract did you interact with? Maybe you interact with a Uniswap, right? You want to make a swap, so you send a transaction to the Uniswap contract. But then within that transaction, you have a whole host of log events. Now, these log events are a lot more granular insight into what's actually happening behind this transaction. So you may have a transaction to the Uniswap contract, but under the hood, you have maybe a transfer to another wallet, and then maybe a transfer to the router, and then the router does a swap with the actual LP, and then there's a transfer maybe back to you, right? So you have multiple events here underneath this one transaction. So that's sort of the structure, and the way that we then store that in our database is very different to how everyone else really does it. If you look at a lot of analytics products on the market, they store block transaction and log event data separately, so in different tables. So if you want to combine some of the transaction information with some of the log event information, right? For example, you want to see the gas fees for swaps, right? And so on and so forth. You need to do these joins and unions and such. So it's relatively complicated. We normalize all of that into a single schema across all of the chains. Now, the way that you can think about this, there's a few buzzwords here like unified tables and normalized schema and such. But one way that I sort of, as a smooth brain, try and think about it as I listen to the giga brains like Ganesh and Brandon, is if you take an Excel spreadsheet, okay, say you're a store, right? You're a store and you're storing the sales of your items. Let's say you have 3 items in this Excel spreadsheet. You may have one spreadsheet for each item, right? Now doing analysis on that isn't too complicated. Right, it's not too hard. You just have 3 spreadsheets to measure. You have the sales of your apples, the sales of your bananas, and the sales of your oranges. But now let's say you are Walmart and you have thousands or tens of thousands of products, and storing all of them in separate schemas is impossible. Just to find something like what is my sales volume, you need to go and you need to join every single table or union every single table together in order to do a very simple calculation like that. For us, we combine that into a single Excel spreadsheet so you can see the sales of your oranges, you can see the sales of your apples, bananas, lemons, grapes, whatever. And so you can see the data for each chain on Ethereum, Polygon, and so on and so forth in one data table. So let me quickly show you for those that are more familiar with looking at this on the actual Block Explorer. So what I have here is I have our all chains schema. This is the data table name. It's called all chains. So what this has, the first two columns, it has your chain ID and your chain name. So this is your chain identifier. So for example, Ethereum mainnet, Avalanche mainnet, and such. Under that, you have all of your block information. So you can see like your block hash, your block height. On the Block Explorer, they have a bunch of this block information, which is what we store. Things like the gas limit for the block and so on and so forth. I'll skip past that because block data isn't super useful for analysis. You won't really use it. You know, you won't really need to look at the gas limit or the block height or the block miner and such. Then all of these fields with transaction underscore at the front is all of your transaction information. So if we click into a transaction, which is stored within these blocks, you see things like your transaction hash, right? Your unique identifier for your transaction. And we store that in the transaction hash column. So we'll actually have pretty extensive written content going into what each one of these fields mean, and then also how to look at it on the Block Explorer and correspond each column to the relevant positions on the Block Explorer. So this is all of your transaction information. And then underneath that, so your log offset and then all the way down to your data res is your log events. So you have 8 log events here stored within this transaction. You have things like swap, transfer, send credits, and such. So these are just more granular info on what's happening underneath. So your log emitter is your address. Your topic event hash is your topic 0 within our field. And again, you can find all of them in the documentation provided in module 1. Sweet. So that's a lot of, you know, how the blockchain stores data and then how we take that and structure it in our all chains data table. Now, because we have a single table, a single schema, it is very easy for us to then build one of these data models in order to interact with it, because these data models then just have to look at a single data table. They don't need to try and join and union a whole bunch of different tables, which makes it extremely complicated, extremely messy, and also very, very inefficient. So I showed you a little bit of the explore models. So those were your dashboards. So I showed you the Chain GDP dashboard down here. Now under that, you can actually use one of these models. So I showed you the charts and the Chain GDP dashboard. Now underneath each one of those charts is a model query. Now, when you open up a query and you're wanting to do some analysis, it's as simple as answering these couple questions to sort of get started. So what model would you like to use? Again, Ganesh mentioned that we have a few. So you have DEX, futures, JPEG, lending, and token balances. For module 1, we'll be mainly focusing on Chain GDP, as it'll be sort of a battle of the blockchains and doing analysis on the actual chains themselves. So then you can decide what you want to measure. So we can look at a whole bunch of different aggregations here. I'm just going to pick, let's say, a ratio, and let's go transactions per active address. What time period would you like to use? The last 30 days. By day. What chain would you like to analyze? So let's just go back to Avalanche. You can add more chains here if you want to. And then what would you like to group the data by? We don't need to have anything there. Awesome. So then you just click apply and you can see your data here. This screen is maybe a little bit overwhelming if you've never seen increment or used increment before, but let me break it down for you a little bit. Let me also zoom out here. So over to the left, you have these dimensions and you have these measures that Ganesh spoke about. And in order to curate your queries, you need to curate your dimensions, measures, and your filter. And I'll show you what that means. So your dimension is purely what you want to group data by. Okay, so if you're wanting to do, say, a count, right? A count of transactions, right? You can group that by the chain in order to, count the number of transactions for that chain. You can group it by things like event. We have things like event label and such. And if you don't initially understand what some of these mean, we also have a little information icon for you guys to learn a little bit more about what these dimensions actually show. So that's dimensions. Your measures are purely your aggregations. These are your averages, these are your totals, these are your sums, ratios, percentages, growth, and so on and so forth. So you can cut and slice your dimensions and get some very powerful custom analysis on your measures here. So for example, for this one, we chose a ratio and we chose transactions per active address. Then if you're wanting to filter, so, you're just wanting to look at, say, the number of, transactions per active address when, your transaction recipient is a certain address, right? So you're wanting to see the transactions just for this address. You would purely come to this little filter here, this little transaction recipient. You'd go equal, and then you would input your address, right? The address of the wallet that you're wanting to look at. I don't have one here right now, but it's very simple. You just copy and paste it in there. Sweet. So that's sort of the flow of defining dimensions, measures, and filters in order to do some extremely powerful analysis. And then, just to finish off, I also have the generated SQL field here. So this is what we spoke about when we have an SQL compiler that writes this SQL for you. And if you wanted to check this out, you can even change some of these dimensions and measures. So let's go event label. So when you change some of these, you actually adjust the SQL. So let me just select a few of these so I can show you. So now you have sort of an adjusted SQL here. So very, very powerful, very awesome that you can just come, click and collect, and it will write all of the SQL for you. Refresh here. Query. Awesome. The last step is creating your chart. So once you've curated your dimensions, measures, and filters for your chain, investigated whatever you want to look at, what we've done here is we've defined a chain name in your filters. We've filtered by chain name, date, and the date aggregation, date range, sorry. This is the last 30 days. So what I want to show you is I'm going to put this chart on a dashboard, and then you're going to see that these filters actually automatically bubble up to the dashboard. So there's no Ganesh mentioned those little essentially SQL filters or snippets that you have to put into your SQL into every single chart in order to have these filters get it on the dashboard level. So I just want to show you and reiterate how easy it is to do this. So let me just name this transactions address. I won't make it too beautiful. Adding it to a page is just select a page. So let's just create one. Alchemist Bootcamp Kickoff. Let's go. So I create this page. Create this, should be showing up here. Oh, here we go. Just took a second to create. So we create this page. Let's just add it to the reach board. Every page that you create automatically has reach, retention, and revenue. And now you can see if I come back to my dashboards here, the Data Alchemist Bootcamp kickoff. Oh, did I not actually add it? I didn't actually add it. Nice. All the benefits of doing a live demo. I didn't actually click add. Okay, hold on 2 seconds. Let me just go. Transactions, last 30 days by day. Avalanche. I'll just quickly spin up a query here and then actually add it to the dashboard. Oh, it's because I created two. Okay, fair. That's fine. Let me just add to the reach board here. It's because I got impatient and decided to click two. Awesome. So now we can see our chart here, and you can see that the filters automatically bubble up to the top. So this one was defaulted for Avalanche C-Chain. So we can come in and we can go, let's just do this for something like Phantom. Can change this. So it'll take a second to run here. But as you guys build this out and you build a lot of this custom analytics and define some of these filters, just automatically goes up to the top, which makes it a very, very good experience for the people using and viewing your dashboard. Awesome. So that's a lot of the increment related demo. I'm happy to take any questions on that. Any questions?
So maybe, yeah, there's a few rolling in here. Maybe if anybody has more questions, just throw them up. We've answered most of them in the Q&A section, like written. So I'll just actually blast through some of those real quick, just to give a recap. So can you analyze testnet data on increment? The answer is yes. It's in the drop-down filter bars. It's also in the SQL-based queries. You can just look for the chain name field and specify whatever testnet you want. Next question was, does increment provide an API you can use to modify your dashboards from outside of the platform? I think the person asking this question was alluding to like Looker's API. Looker has kind of a best-in-class API where you can modify your Looker dashboards outside of Looker. We don't have that yet. We're not at that scale, but that's something we're aware of and we would build eventually. Cross-chain comparisons, yes, they are possible. Drag and drop models, can you write actual SQL? Yes, you can. Is the raw data available for the drag and drop models? Absolutely. It's all underneath the drag and drop models. So even if you can't find what you're looking for, you can just go to that generated SQL and look at the raw data yourself with the SQL.
Also, I just want to touch on that point as well. We can bake a lot of metrics and dimensions into these models. So if you have ideas about analysis that you want to see, I wouldn't default to going to the SQL and just writing the SQL. I would come to us and actually be like, hey, I want to do this, that, and the next. How do I do this? And we could actually bake that into the model to give you this code-free experience. Just wanted to touch on that point.
Yeah. Cool. Then can we access increment from today onwards? Yes, you can. All you have to do is sign up for a free Covalent API account, and then you'll see increment in the top right corner there. There's instructions that we'll share after this recording as well. But yeah, you can go in there and access it today. And then explain how the credits are being consumed is the other question. So I can take that one on. Credits are consumed on increment based on query runtime. So all of the models are built very efficiently And if you include proper filters, if you write proper SQL and include proper filters, then you will spend less credits, obviously. So the credits are based on runtime. You don't have to worry too much about that throughout this bootcamp. For the increment side, API credits are a different thing. We're talking increment here. So yeah, for the increment side, you don't have to worry too much about the credits. We'll cover those for the duration of the bootcamp, and people will be rewarded with credits for completing the bootcamp so that you can extend that time out for the free usage.
There's no more
reading some of
questions.
the
I'll
other
just touch on
questions.
some of the next steps. Yep.
Yeah,
what
so
are
there's
some?
one other question here. Can I use the API for the ML models? Absolutely. Yeah, you can use the API for the ML models. You can use increment for your ML models. Probably better to use increment. I think you mentioned using the API for creating some dashboards. You're going to use increment to create the dashboards. The API is more for like wallets and taxation use cases. But yeah, totally. Sweet. Yeah, go ahead, Luke. You can oh, there's another question here.
There's a big question. Well, maybe I can just read this
The
off
answer
and
is yes. Yeah, the answer to that big question is yes. It is a good
yeah,
analogy.
but just for the
That's
recording,
exactly correct.
maybe just for the recording, I'll just iterate on Ali's point here, which is he speaks about increment being similar to a lot of the powerful Web 2 tools that a lot of traditional organizations are used to. So these are your Power BI, your Looker, and such, Metabase and things like this. And it's very similar to that, we aggregate all of this data, we index it all, we normalize a lot of it. So we normalize like the DEX trades and the NFT sales and the lending deposits and such. And then we allow you to have this sort of drag and drop experience to building analytics on top. So yes, your sales, your HR, and marketing department can all use this because it's non-technical. We've actually had a lot of people from our internal team, non-technical internal team, that were just, the barrier to entry was just far too large last time, that are coming into the boot camp now and learning alongside a lot of you guys. So it's really, really compelling to see that we're actually unlocking this whole new sort of segment of the market, where it's not just these hardcore data scientists, these hardcore SQL writers that can now make analysis. It's really anyone. If you can, the market for clicking a mouse is much bigger than the market for writing SQL. So that's really the goal here. Any more questions, Brandon? There's a ClickHouse question. Underlying data warehouse.
Yeah, we use ClickHouse as our underlying database. I think we're pretty good for questions now. Any other questions? Let's throw them in the Discord.
Awesome.
And we can just answer questions in the Discord for sure.
Yep. So let me just talk about next steps. So what we'll do is we'll take this recording, we'll put it on YouTube, and then we'll put it within a Notion doc for module 1. And this document I will share in the Discord, and it will have all the details about the challenges and some more of the written content for the week, how we are going to be grading some of these submissions, and some notes to help you guys succeed here. So the task for week 1 is to pick 2 competing blockchains and to create some analysis on Twitter, doing comparison of their ecosystems, their tractions, in the lens of reach, retention, and revenue. So it's going to be very, very exciting. We're starting off really with some really cool analysis, and I can't wait to see what you guys create. And me and Brandon will be in the Discord 24/7, answering all of you, answering any questions that you guys have. We also have office hours. So on the calendar, there's also office hours about 12 hours apart all the time. So that you can also come to and ask questions. Awesome. Well, I hope everyone's excited about module 1. Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you, Brandon. And I'll see you guys in the Discord. Can't wait to see what you guys create. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Cheers,
See ya.
guys. Take care. Good luck. Bye.